my camera is frozen, so I'm moving around very vividly, but it seems like everyone is having a problem with that link that was on the website, on the calendar. So Sean is trying to help Burnett get in, and I sent them, the other ones, the link from last week's meeting.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that link. But I know I don't see Councilman Anderson.
Or you may be able to come back in just typing it straight in.
Well, that's what I did, but
Okay.
it wouldn't activate my camera or the audio.
Okay.
But I did hear Dr. Worthy said it was dinner time, and she had rice and beans, so I was present.
We heard you singing too.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. So I don't know, my camera's not working, so you're not going to be able to bestow me, but.
Okay, I think Councilman Perone is still having problems too. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Right. Mr. Harris said he can't get his auto either. Some kind of problem with the link or something. Okay, we see you. I mean, well, we see you. Okay, bye.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we can get started. 6 p.m.
It's 6 p.m. This meeting is called to order. I'll do roll call. Councilman Anderson,
Present.
Councilwoman Perone,
Present.
Councilwoman Worthy,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Whitfield,
Present.
and Mayor McIntosh.
Present.
Let us stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, this is to announce that adequate notice of this meeting was provided in the following manner. On October the 6th, 2022 and November the 5th, 2022, advance written notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal complex and was mailed to the Burlington County Times, the Intelligencer, and the Courier Times. On October the 6th, 2022 and November the 5th, 2022, advance written notice of this meeting was filed with the township clerk. The clerk is directed to enter into the minutes of this meeting, this public announcement. Also, Mayor, off of this agenda, I left off public comments and council comments, which we will add in as you see fit. Over to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, council colleagues. How are you today? Good evening, Mr. Harris.
Good evening, everyone.
Good. Today we'll be going over some working budget discussions that Mr. Harris will lead. We'll be looking at inspections, public safety, and fire and EMS today. So I will turn it over to you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. And just as I have stated for the record, under New Jersey Statute 4069A-96, that during the month of November of each year, the municipal manager shall require all department heads to submit requests for appropriations for the ensuing budget year and to appear before him at a public hearing, which shall be held during that month on the various requests. This is what we are continuing this process. We are going to start off this evening with our presentation from support services, also known as inspections. So if Sean would be kind enough and allow Mr. Tunstall into the meeting. And you can put his presentation up on the screen as well.
I like your shirt, Mr. Tunstall.
Oh, let me see if you can get the rest of me. All right. Thank you. You like that?
I like that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good evening. Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, and of course, our Willingboro public. When Mr. Sean is ready, we will begin the presentation for the Inspections Department, formerly known as Support Services. Can we go to the first page, please? This, of course, is a budget presentation for 2023 for Support Services. Next page, please. Support Services is comprised of course, the construction group, which basically has 2 full-time employees and 2 contractors. We also have 1 elevator inspection service provider, as well as zoning, which is 1 full-time person. There is currently a trainee in process. These 2 individuals also have other duties within Support Services. Code enforcement is comprised of 3 senior code enforcement officers and 5 code enforcement officers, as well as 1 clerk. We've moved into that area to assist. Housing inspections is 1 full-time clerk, 1 part-time clerk, 1 full-time housing inspector, and we have a slot available for 1 other full-time housing inspector we hope to bring on before the end of the year. Next slide, please. So starting with awards and dues, as you can see, awards and dues were actually down $300. Awards and dues consist of memberships basically for the UCC, the Uniform Construction Code, as well as code enforcement. That'll be planning, zoning, ICC memberships, and the American Association for Code Enforcement. These are all organizations in which our employees are involved in. Moving on to travel and expenses. Actually, travel and expenses has increased $1,500. We have 2 new code enforcement officers, senior code enforcement officers, I should say, that will be participating in the League of Municipalities and zoning conferences. As we move on to printing, printing has increased approximately $2,000. This area is basically our UCC placards, binders, stickers, UCC folders, forms, and business cards, specifically for Uniform Construction Code use. They are quite unique. In our training, there is no change. Actually, it's still $5,000. The information is regarding 2 code enforcement officers as well. We have cannabis training, UCC seminars. It should be noted that last year, most of our seminars and our training were online, but we believe that going forward in 2023, a lot of those seminars and training sessions will be held in person. Books and publishing, there is a substantial increase of approximately $2,000. Basically, that's the UCC code books have not been updated in the last 3 years, possibly due to COVID, but we are expecting in 2023 all the UCC code books to be updated, and that is a reasonable cost for the entire collection to be updated. One of these days it will move to electronic books, but right now we get hard copies from the state. Clothing and equipment. It's going to increase by about $700. We do have 2 new code enforcement officers. We are on a program where we're hired a vendor to provide the shirts for the code enforcement department, and we're going to purchase some jackets and other gear for winter time periods. So we had actually about a $700 increase there. Construction equipment, it appears to be about a 20.
Mr. Tunstall, I'm sorry. Is it possible that we can advance to the next slide? Okay, someone just did it. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, we're good now.
I might have not given Mr. Sean that heads up. Let's start again. Clothing and equipment. Looks like we have about a $700 increase. I think I mentioned that we have 2 new code enforcement officers, and that $700 would help in obtaining the gear for those individuals, specifically winter gear for outside. Most of our officers spend the majority of their time outside. Construction office equipment, we have an increase of approximately $2,200. This is UCC equipment, including COVID necessary equipment, folders, binders, and office supplies. These supplies have to be uniquely maintained for UCC so that they have a year-end report that would encompass all of their data as far as expenditures. So that's why you'll see it separated from the code enforcement officer's equipment, which is next. Looks like there was a level, no increase, $2,000. This, of course, would be our color folders, electric staplers, other equipment and placards, door hangers, and things that the code enforcement officers use as printed material. As we move on to our contractual requirements, this is our new software, FTG. As you can see, it's a substantial increase from our previous softwares. This software, FTG, which is Fast Track Gov, is intended to be an interactive software in the near future with the public, having access to kiosks and being able to communicate with the township electronically versus having to come in and do hard copies of everything. It is one software versus the 4 others we've had. When all the interface items are active, hopefully we'll have a very, very productive software going forward. But it was a substantial increase of approximately $30,000 in compared to the other 4 softwares we've had.
So, Mr. Tunsil, if I can ask you one question really quick about that. Are we going to be discontinuing services on any of the other software programs, or is this just a flat $30,000 increase above what we were already paying?
No, the other softwares were approximately $23,000 to $25,000. We are moving away from those softwares altogether. So we will not be using any of the previous softwares. This is going to be the new software of our future. I must add that, this has been going on for the last 3 or 4 years. We've been slowly implementing this software and working through some various bugs and problems we've had with it. We're getting to the point where we almost have just about every feature functioning, at least every feature in terms of our use internally. We still have a couple of problems with the rental side being a little complex in terms of it's being able to work with it. Takes a little more time than our previous software as far as inputting data, but the vendor is working with us on improving that. Construction inspections.
I have a question, Mr. Tunsil, or
Certainly.
Mr. Harris, should I hold my questions till then?
I'm comfortable either way.
Yeah, it's up to you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I'll hold it.
I might forget. Okay.
I wrote it down.
Construction inspections. So this is our contractors. We have Mr. Bob Salmon, our building subcontractor, who does plan review for building subcode. His salary is approximately $12,980. Mr. Salmon comes in roughly 2 to 3 times a week to handle all building plan reviews. We have Mr. Wallace, who has the subcode certificates of electrical, mechanical, plumbing, building, as well as plan review. He comes in approximately 3 to 4 days a week as needed. If we don't need either one of those individuals, they do not come in. They get paid by the day when they appear or as they work. We are we have moved to, I should say, a municipal code enforcement company, MCE, which now does the inspection of our elevators for the municipality, as well as our school system, hospitals, and non-municipal buildings. Previously, we had a contractor that worked directly for the township that was doing those inspections, and the gentleman retired, and it's almost impossible to find a elevator inspector now. So those fees are primarily recovered for all the non-municipal buildings, but of course, we would have to continue to pay this companies for their services for our in-house elevators. Just a note, in 2020, we processed approximately 7,565 UCC inspections, and that was with one full-time and one part-time individual. Since we moved to 2 part-time individuals, we're still on target. In 2021, we processed 7,414 UCC inspections in our current format that you see in front of you. And in 2022, we're on target with about 7,110 to date, which was as of 11/7. We expect to exceed over 8,000 this year in terms of inspections. So we're on target. Things are working well. There is some considerable savings in doing our inspections and using contractors. The bottom line is we use them as we need them, as the permits come in, and as we become inundated with permits. Of course, they would be working more frequently on the times that we do not have much activity, which is very rare in this department. They're not used. All right, if we can move on to the next slide. So Life Hazard has been added to my budget this year. It was previously handled by, I think it was it Public Works?
It was facilities,
which is now under Public Works. So this will be a new line item for me. It's an additional, of course, we estimate it to be $6,000. It was about $54.89 last year. These are state registrations for the use of and responsibilities for all our municipal buildings and grounds. So JFK has a specific registration, the fire department, Willingboro Township building, and all other buildings associated with the municipality. That actually concludes my budget presentation. I will be more than glad to entertain any questions that you may have.
So for the benefit of the council, as Mr. Tunstall was explaining, the life hazard registrations are fees that we have to pay to the state for all of our buildings. And unfortunately, those registrations have not been submitted regularly and on a timely basis. And I just thought it was more practical for Mr. Tunstall and his team, who has a little more oversight on those types of registrations and can be a little more diligent in submitting them in a timely manner, saving us additional headaches and costs and late fees and things like that. Mr. Tunstall, I did have a question regarding Dwayne Wallace.
Yes,
so
sir.
I see in the budget, you have him 3 to 4 days per week as needed. Does he get does he get like a per diem type stipend, or is this just a 44,000 straight out compensation?
No, it's a per diem stipend. So if he works, he gets paid. If he doesn't work, he does not get paid. Neither one of our subcontractors are salaried individuals. They work based on, I take that back. Bob is a salaried individual. His stipend is $12,980. Mr. Wallace is a per diem per day. So if he works 3 days, he gets paid for 3 days. If he doesn't work 3 days, he does not get paid. He also does not have vacation or any of the other benefits associated with a full-time employee.
Can you estimate, or do you know off the top of your head what we have paid him so far in 2022?
I certainly can. Right now, we're at about 36,000. So
Okay.
we're under budget currently. And matter of fact, I was somewhat surprised at that because we've had a few illnesses where he had to fill in. And of course, we use him when Mr. Buckhofer's on vacation or any of the other employees are vacationing or ill. We had a few issues with illnesses within the department, but we're under budget thus far, and I estimate that we will probably still remain under budget, finishing up this last month and a half, 2 months.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Any of the governing body members?
Deputy Mayor, oh, go ahead, Dr. Worthy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had 2 questions, Mr. Tunstall. The first is for the Fast Track Gov software. I was wondering if there are any features or enhancements that residents would be able to notice or experience with the change to this software?
Excellent question. As of this date, there are no changes that I believe that the public can enjoy at this time. However, the purpose behind going to Fast Track Gov was its capabilities and the fact that we can install kiosks as well as access from the public to submit their documents, at least the documents that do not require seals and things of that nature, as well as the ability to accept online payments. So that's going to be a process as a township that we're going to have to move towards. But this particular software is built for those capabilities. We have not implemented them to date, but right now we're just working on trying to make sure the software works properly and getting everybody up to speed with its use. I don't know if you're familiar with FTG, but I think this, like 5 or 6 years ago, back in 2018, I think it was, a contract was let for this software, and we've been sort of in a developmental phase ever since then, trying to get it right, to be honest with you. We finally got to the point where we can introduce it to our employees, and they are mastering it in terms of its use. We have 1 or 2 bugs that we're working out, but the company has been helpful to this point in working with us to resolve some of the problems we've had. But it's been an ongoing process for the last 5 years that I know of.
Thank you. And of course, I appreciate IT enhancements. I know that sometimes as a municipality, we struggle with the successful implementation when it comes to IT projects. You know, the website project is still lagging on. So I would just ask Mr. Harris if this is something that ends up going forward, that we have a very deliberate project plan with milestones and phases to make sure that the residents, that ultimately gets to the point where the residents are able to take advantage of those capabilities that Mr. Tunstall mentioned, because we're still not there yet with our website to get to the point where it was supposed to be to enhance residents' experiences. And I don't want us to have another IT project that gets started and it just fizzles out because we're investing the money, but I think we just have to make sure we get it all the way across the finish line. My second question for you, Mr. Tunstall, is I know you mentioned hiring additional staff, and I certainly appreciate the work that your department does. I was wondering if this additional staff person would be able to help with weekends. I know that it's been a point of vulnerability for our town, not having the coverage over the weekends. So I was just curious if this person would help round out what's missing.
Good question. We've actually just brought in a new code enforcement officer, and that was part of the criteria for him being hired, was that there are potential weekends that would need to be worked. We're going to do it in a rotational manner. I want to bring this individual up to speed first, get him fully trained before I put him out there by himself. Of course, you know, most of us are in town and can assist, but he has already been made aware that weekends would be required. And yes, there is a lot of activity going on the weekends that we both know about that needs to be addressed. And we are addressing it. That particular incident, we can talk about it more offline, but the right people showed up and took care of that particular incident on, I believe it was Saturday or Friday night.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. So those are my only questions.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Worden. Deputy Mayor, did you have any further questions?
I did. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Tunstall, for your presentation. One of the questions that I had was on the FTG software as well. That $30,000 increase, you mentioned that we would be not having the charge for the other systems and just this. So that number, the new number, I think was
54,520.
54,520. Is that an annual fee that we'd be taking on year after year, or does that include implementation charges, or just trying to get a picture of what that looks like, not just this year, but going forward?
So all the 4 other previous softwares came to a total of $24,000. When I say $30,000 increase, that of course is deducted from the $54,000, which is an annual charge for this particular software. So going forward, we would have an annual charge of $54,000 per year. This software, as I was stating, is intended to do a lot in terms of interfacing with the public. We have not gotten there yet, but I envision that we can get there with the right implementation in the near future. It's going to be a process because it's meant to interface with the public. That was the purpose behind, I believe, the selection of this software back in 2018. It's just that it's been a process getting it to work the way we need it to work with our particular nuances within this town. There are things that we do that are different than other towns. This software would be great if we started from scratch and we didn't have any other software that we had to merge into this software. The biggest thing has been getting all our records, all our data, all our information, and putting it into this database so that we have access to it when we move forward with our current situations. So that has been the biggest dilemma to this point, but I think we're almost there. Most of the data has been converted and put into this new software. Some of it is still lacking, but fortunately we do have access to the old software. I shouldn't say that out loud, but we're not paying for it.
Okay. And then another question on that same topic is, you mentioned the increased accessibility to our residents via kiosk or other devices. Would that require an additional investment, or is that encompassed in the new 54,000 number?
So I've been studying this contract and trying to understand the premises for its selection. I do know that there are going to be additional charges for kiosk setups and things of that nature. I do not believe that everything is included in that $54,000. I've been going over it, and we'll be going over it with our QPL to understand exactly what additional charges will be. But I do not think that everything is included. I think that this is a base program. It allows you access to those things, They gave us demonstrations where other towns were using them, but most of those towns were starting off with nothing, and they didn't have to try to roll over the additional or their previous data. But yes, I do believe there are going to be additional charges. I will try to identify what those charges are so that going forward, we know exactly what our costs are going to be associated with implementing all the different bells and whistles.
Okay. And I assume with your estimation for the 2023 year, that those additional devices or things wouldn't be on your radar, on your schedule for execution in 2023.
I don't envision it happening in 2023, but we have been having very active discussions with the software manufacturer on when we can start to implement those things. The biggest thing, I'm going to be honest with you, thus far has just been getting this software to do exactly what we need it to do as our municipality. It was kind of generated for the masses, and we have a specific and unique application in terms of our use of the software. And it's been a process trying to get them to understand, we don't need that, we need this. And that's been how it's been working thus far. We're getting there. I think we can get there before the end of the year. We've just been working out one detail in terms of our rental resale process. They haven't been able to produce the reports we need, but they've gone back and started to reassess that area and produce the proper reports.
Okay. Well, it does sound like this software could be very beneficial and helpful to our residents to ease the process of inspections and such. I'd be interested in a public presentation of how the software works, so that it, as a part of your rollout plan, to get everyone up to speed on those processes. My last question is about the life hazard new line item that you added. Will we see a reduction from the facilities budget for that, Mr. Harris, I guess?
Yes. Yes, those registration fees have been all transported from the various departments and been included under this one line item.
All right. That was all. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, should be noted that we've done this in the past. It has been under support services budget previously, so we're familiar with processing that documentation and getting those items registered properly.
Right. And Mr. Tunstall is also in the process of reviewing his fees that his department does charge, hopefully to offset some of those additional, that 30,000 costs for that new software. Right, Mr. Tunstall?
Yes, we just submitted a few changes recently. I think it was last meeting, but those were, with UCC items, you have to be very careful with, any modifications or changing of fees, because as you guys are aware, at the end of the year, everything has to balance out properly. You can't make money, you have to break even. So it's a very delicate juggling act to make sure that at the end of the year, when you do your report to the state, everything comes out in the proper fashion.
Well, we're not trying to make money. We just want to balance out the expense.
Completely understand. And we will review all our fees on a regular basis to make sure that we're where we need to be in terms of making sure that there are no losses as well for the township. We're not in the business to make money, but we're working towards not costing the township anything.
And it would be helpful to see how those fees compare to others, other municipalities in the county.
Right. Yeah, most of the UCC fees are pretty stringently regulated. You'll find that those fees are pulled directly from ordinances, or I should say state UCC, DCA documentation, and they're right in line with what the state requires that we charge. What basically happens is ours is all about volume. I mean, we process a lot of permits. There's a lot of activity going on in this town. There's a lot of work going on in this town, most of which has been properly documented through permits. And the weekend stuff we'll have to work on. But that's where the funds come from the permits. And they are very stringently controlled in terms of how much you can charge for a specific item.
Understood. And then so off the back of that, what is our revenue? I think you might have said it, but I might have missed it. What is the
No
total
problem.
revenue?
We've been doing pretty good as a township. I just talked to Ms. Diggs recently this morning, and I think for UCC alone, we're well over $800,000. So if you couple that with the housing, code enforcement, zoning, we should be close to that magic number we try to get to every year.
1 million.
Okay. That's the magic number. Okay,
That's always the magic number. I
Okay.
try not to,
understood.
but that's the magic number.
And then back to the Fast Track Gov. So you feel as the director that this program will streamline your work process your work process. I know we did talk a lot about the interface with the public, which is extremely important. Like we have to get that implemented. But for your purposes, for code and inspections, does this really help streamline your work process?
I'm going to be very, very honest with you. This software has been around for a while, probably before my time. And we have been working very, very hard to make it work for us. And I would not accept it until we were able to make it work for us. So this has been on the table for a while. Through many assessments. And I think we're at the point now where we got it where we want it to be. I mean, it's a good software. It's just that we have to manipulate it so that it works for us and not a generic software like it is. It's for all municipalities, and we need it to work for Willingboro Township, not any other township. So it has been a process. I'm confident that with continued work with this manufacturer, this vendor, we will get where we need to be. Now, when it comes to implementing all the pieces that the public is involved in, then that's when we'll really understand what this software's capabilities are. They say it can do a lot. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We've just been working on our portion of it and making sure it's workable, or I should say, it works within our system. We're getting there. We have a couple more hurdles to climb, but the majority of them we have overcome. So if that answers your question, yes, we're getting there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I guess my concern is paying the full price and we're not taking advantage of all its functionality. So I'm still a little concerned with the full investment, and and we'll talk further about it. But
I think it's worth.
If we invest in it, I just want to make sure that we take, I know, and it seems like since it's been a long process, I don't know if it's going to be, more long processes to try to get everything up to speed.
I think going forward, to answer your question, to answer all of your questions, once we get to that point, I think it will be worthwhile getting the support vendor in to talk to the council and help them understand what its capabilities are and what the responsibilities will be going forward in terms of any additional charges, if there are any. Once again, this software was in the makings for a while. We've kind of, been holding it off, not accepting it. And it's been a process getting to the point where we can accept it. I would like to also see what all the many other capabilities are. that I read about when I read through the documentation. But we're not there yet.
And I, just one person, would like to understand that before making that, full investment. I do think, that you would know what we need, more so than us. But I would also keep a lookout, and I'm not putting a directive out on this, but are there any other softwares that you see? I know we've invested a lot of time and effort in this, but is there anything else that you think would be a quicker fix that's more in line with what we need, as opposed to trying to make this work if it doesn't work? I would like to be open to some other options.
Understood. I completely understand. And I'm not one to throw good money after bad. So if it comes to the point where we're unable to make this work to the level of our expectations, then I will make it very clear that that is the case. But right now, I mean, we're getting there. I see a lot of progress in our communication with the vendor, and it's one piece of software as opposed to 5, where you had to be all over the place in terms of going to various locations. So it's very convenient. It's just that, it's not as productive in terms of the reports and things like that we're used to. And that's where we're working with them on kind of homing in on what our actual needs are, because our needs are different than other townships. And they need to understand that. And that's the part that we've been working with them on. They haven't quite understood it fully yet, but trust me, I'm bringing it more and more to their attention.
Okay, I appreciate that. Councilwoman Perrone, did you have anything?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Tunstall. So my questions, I see that it's a $30,000 change, which means an increase to last year's budget. And I imagine that the $30,000 has to do with the program that you're speaking of, the Fast Track Gov.
That's correct.
Okay, so what are you using currently?
We're using 5 different programs. We're using Gov Online, we're using Mitchell Humphrey, we're using Enforcer, we're using and 2 other softwares. So those softwares in total were $24,000.
Okay, so with this program, does that consolidate all of those programs to one?
That's correct.
At the object. Okay, and have you invested any money so far with Fast Track Gov?
Have we invested any money? This has been an ongoing process. This is a contract. This is not something that I created or made up. This was a contract that we went into, the township went into back in 2018, I believe.
Right.
It has been, once again, an ongoing process to get them to this level where we're able to accept the software. So we've been investing in the process in terms of training, in terms of them coming. As a matter of fact, before COVID, they used to come out on a frequent basis to go over the software with us and to train individuals on the use of the software. It has been online training recently, but yes, there has been investments prior to this point, which was part of the contract. So all those things were written in the contract: how much money, how much time, the evolution of this software. So yeah, it's been going on for a number of years.
Okay, and that's why I asked that question, because I did hear you state that this has been going on as far as trying to get it to the perfect software for Willingboro, Willingboro's department, code enforcement department. So my next question is, well, I would state my concern first, and then I'm going to ask my question. My concern is that, and I listened to you, and I listened to the other questions and comments, and my concern is that you are not 100% certain that this software is going to be conducive for Willingboro 100%. It sounds like the community that will be using the program, meaning the residents, that has not been sorted out necessarily yet. It sounds like we want to move forward with the next phases, making a payment and actually starting some sort of actuality happening. And so what I'm fearful of is that I'm going to get phone calls from the residents that they're trying to pay their tax, whatever they're trying to do something with their house, they're not getting through, something's not working, because that's what ends up happening once these type of softwares don't work. So that's a concern. My proposal is if this company, Fast Track Gov, can conduct a pilot program whereby the council members can be a resident, a pretend resident or a specific person that we go in and we try to actually conduct a play role with what you have set up. This way, we actually have customers, residents that are using the software, but on a pilot level, before we actually jump full head in, dive into an agreement with them. And as you stated, you've been working with trying to get it where Willingboro, it works for Willingboro. So I want the customers, for it to work for our customers, which is our residents. So is that something that is possible where we can do it? And I've done this with other companies. That's why I'm suggesting it, where we pilot it and test it out using whoever's interested in participating in the pilot. I was just stating the council, but maybe somebody in your department, on the opposite end. What do you think about that?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, you got to understand that we've been doing this, this pilot, if you will, with our use for the last 6-7 months. So this is going on. I envision that going forward, when we start to do the interface with the public, we're going to have to go through the same process. I want you to understand that this was a contract that the township made a decision on using this software. This is not support services software.
Right.
This is what, back in 2018, Willingboro Township and the governing body decided to accept and use this software going forward. What I'm telling you is that it's been quite a process in getting that software to where we are today. That contract was, we have an agreement with them that this is what we're going to do. I have just, and my predecessors have held off on accepting it and paying them in full until we were comfortable with the software doing what we wanted it to do. So to answer your question, we're doing exactly what you're asking. We're making sure the software is working. We're making sure it works to our capabilities, meaning Willingboro Townships. And when the next phase comes, and as far as implementing the interface with the public, we will go through the same system of checks and balances and test and evaluation that we've done currently with it for this department. So we're in a contract. Yeah.
If I may, so with the part about interfacing the public, that's because that's the area that seems that hasn't happened yet. And I hear you saying that's that correct. Once we get there, before we actually dive into where the actual public is using it, can we do a pilot phase where we have fictitious people actually piloting it, like somebody who we designate the public, like the council could be the public in a pretend type of a way.
I completely agree. There's no reason to roll out any software before you've piloted it and made sure that it works properly. So that will be the next phase of what we do. Some type of pilot program, whether it involves the council or members of the public or some individuals that we select, that is what we're going to do. We're not going to roll it out before we know it works. Okay. So I agree with you there.
And it could be somebody in your department. I was just recommending the council, but it can be somebody in the municipal that actually are using it and interfacing with your department on the customer's end and seeing if that whole role play is actually making sense. This way we stand out the glitches before the public actually gets to it.
I completely understand. Right now, we've been doing all back office stuff.
Yeah,
That's considered the front office.
right.
That's where the public will be involved.
Yeah.
And that process has not been fully developed yet. We will go through whatever is necessary to make sure it's implemented properly. We're not going to put anything out there if it doesn't work.
Okay, so my last, in closing with that, thank you. In closing with that, so where does that leave us today with your presentation and the idea of conducting a pilot operation where we have a role play with customers, residents actually using it, but not real residents, somebody from the department? Where does that interplay with regards to date, this budget and timeline?
Okay, I believe that that is obviously going to be the next phase. We are finishing the implementation of the software in terms of the back office. When I say back office, that's the township's use of the software. The next phase will be the front office use, meaning the public's implementation. I envision that probably happening sometime later this year, if not next year. We'll be having those conversations very soon. Once again, there are one or two bugs we're still working out on the back office side
Okay.
that I have to make sure we can use this software properly, or I will not recommend it if we cannot use it properly.
Okay, so we are we're doing our budget presentations currently, and we'll be making final decisions in March, I guess, which is typical of when we make our final determinations. By March, do you think we would have, where would we be with regards to this proposal that you have with this part of your project for Fast Track Gov?
Honestly, I think by March, we should have worked out all the bugs on the back office, and we should be in the process of understanding what the next step will be with the front office
Okay.
application. Keep in mind that this is a contract that we're in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, speaking of the contract, I don't see our solicitor here, so maybe it's another question for later. But with that contract, because as you described, it started so many years ago, perhaps we need to take another look at it, especially because the pilot phase of the actual customer use, which is the public, has not happened yet. But I would like to see some sort of verbiage added in it. And I haven't seen the contract, but perhaps to make sure that something is added there. If once we conduct a pilot that is just not working, that we have the option to not move forward. I don't want to be stuck with like Republic right now. So I just want to make sure that that happens. I know it's contract talk, and I heard, I don't see the solicitor here, but I know we're not supposed to talk about it.
We'll take a look at it. We'll take a look at it. I think we should do that
Okay.
offline.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, may I speak on my bias here?
Yes.
Mr. Tunstall, great presentation. I appreciate your thorough and honest answers. And, I appreciate all the questions from my colleagues. And if anything changes based on the conversation this evening, please let us know sooner than later. But once again, great job, Mr. Tunstall. Thank you.
No problem. Everyone have a great evening.
Thank you for the clarification. There's some things we didn't understand, so thank you for the clarification.
Not a problem.
It's made clear.
Good night, Dennis.
Good night. Thank you. So next up is our public safety. Presentation is going to be presented by Captain Donofrio and Captain Jeffrey Perez in the absence of Captain Bucks, who is at the FBI Academy in Virginia. Captain Perez or Captain Donofrio, who's going to take the lead? Captain Donofrio. You're both muted, so unmute yourselves.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Willingboro. Thank you for having us tonight. Mr. O'Brien, are you able to bring up our presentation? Thank you, sir. Okay, this is the 2023 Willingboro budget, Willingboro Public Safety Department budget presentation. Next slide, please. The Public Safety Department includes police, fire, EMS, Office of Emergency Management, traffic guards, and this year we took over the Municipal Security Department. Just as a note, fire and EMS will be covered in a separate presentation. Next slide, please. The police department is a 24/7, 365 agency that employs 68 sworn police officers when we're at full staff. Our job is to patrol the municipality, investigate crimes, and answer 911 calls. The police department on average handles approximately 30,000 calls for service per year, and we are on pace to meet that number this year. Next slide, please. The Office of Emergency Management works with Willingboro's police, fire, and EMS, as well as county, state, and federal organizations to ensure that we are prepared for all types of emergencies, including natural disasters, man-made disasters, and health emergencies. The OEM consists of a coordinator and 4 volunteers. Additionally, they manage the CERT team, which consists of 30 active volunteers. Next slide, please. The Municipal Security Unit consists of 18 part-time security guards and 1 full-time supervisor. They are responsible for assisting visitors and maintaining security at the Kennedy Center, Library, and Municipal Complex. Next slide, please. And the Traffic Guard Unit consists of 46 part-time traffic guards. They ensure the safety of the students, the pedestrian traffic before and after school. Next slide, please. Okay, we are going to start with the police department, and we are going to start in the administration section. Just so council is aware and the public is aware, we have made some changes this year at the direction and instruction of Mr. Harris. We have several different sections. Some of it was kind of confusing. Having been newer to my position myself this year, it was confusing to me when I started. The way some of these sections were set up, there is legacy line items, and if you were going to Edmonds, you'll see there's a lot of zeroed out line items in there that we can't get rid of because we need to know what the past was, and so we can see what the changes are. This year our goal is to make it a lot more clear exactly, instead of having really large line items that it's not really clear where the money is going to, what group, what division, what unit. We're going to try to make it a lot more clear to council and the public so they can understand what specifically we are requesting this money for. So you'll see the first item we start with is police department administration clothing. Administration is going to be the command staff. That is the lieutenants and captains, and that would include Captain Perez, myself, Captain Bucks, and at full staff we would have 5 lieutenants. Now you'll see, if we compare this year's request of $4,200 to 2021 and 2022, it looks like an increase. It's actually not an increase. That number was moved from a larger pool that was under staff services. It was a general pool when we wanted to be more specific as to exactly where we wanted those funds used. So that $4,200 would not be a change. The original line item was the staff services uniform and equipment line item. Next, we're looking at administration awards and dues. Those actually it's going toward dues for Director Bucks and Captain Perez to be a part of these national organizations. These organizations provide regular information through periodicals and emails, alerts, notices, that type of things about the latest and most important and critical changes in the law enforcement profession. Next, we are looking at administration travel expense that we are, going back to the administration and dues, we are asking for a $200 increase in that this year. The reason for that being last year we had 2 ranking administrators, Director Lohman and Captain McKendrick. They were retiring, so we knew we didn't need as much for them last year, or I'm sorry, as they were retiring. We knew we didn't need as much for this year because we knew it was going to take a little time to bring in new staff to replace them. So next year, we know we're going to have Captain Perez and Captain Bucks in place to be a part of these organizations. And that's the same thing going into administration travel expense. These are expenses to pay for, hotel rooms and travel for training conferences such as FBI National Academy Associates, International Association of Chiefs of Police, and the New Jersey Chiefs of Police Association. And again, these training conferences are used to keep the command staff at the cutting edge of what's best practices in law enforcement. The reason for the increase, again, we know who we're going to have that's going to be available to go to these events, and also there are more events available now that we are moving beyond the COVID years. All right, if we can move to the next slide, please. All right, we are at administration office supplies, fairly self-explanatory, paper clips, post-it notes, etc. We do move quite a bit of paper through these offices, and much of those reports and things like that are mandated by the prosecutors, courts, attorney general, etc. So again, pretty self-explanatory, no change there. Next line item would be administration printing. This is stationary letterhead, envelopes. We do have to do quite a bit of correspondence, firearms applications when it comes to, sending out purchase orders and things like that. Quite a bit of written communication still, and business cards. Administration training, and again, no change here. And as described before, these are the other line item we had discussed was for the actual travel expenses. This is just the cost of the tuition for those trainings. Administration office equipment. This is going to be thumb drives, label makers, small peripherals, recordable CDs and DVDs, that type of thing. Next slide, please. Administration contractual. This is contractual services we have that are used to direct the police department. Our Power DMS directive management system, for example, that's how we push out our policies and our training to all of our staff. It's also how we ensure accountability. If someone were to say, I was never taught that, I was never told that, we are able to keep track of that accountability through that system. It's also the system that we use to manage all of our accreditation documents and proofs that need to go into that. The POS employees scheduling program, again, trying to keep track of all these employees on a rotating or on a 24-hour rotating, 24-hour days, 365 rotating shift. That software is critical to make sure we're tracking not only who's supposed to be working, when they're supposed to be working, they're not working too many hours, and also we're giving them appropriate time off as required by their contracts. IACP policy database, again, that's something, database that we use to get policies from police departments all around the country, help us form our own policies. So those are some of the examples of what would be coming out of that line item. And again, no change for this year. Patrol clothing and cleaning. That is a cleaning allowance that is part of the FOP and LISA collective bargaining agreements. The patrol awards and dues, these are not monetary awards. These are physical awards such as plaques and certificates. We do a quarterly ceremony where we recognize what we call the officer of the quarter. Generally, there's 4 officers that we pick. They're selected by their immediate supervisors and for going above and beyond outstanding service. And then we select one of them to be the officer of the quarter. Next slide, please. Patrol travel expense. So again, like the administration travel expense, these are rooms and other travel expenses associated with sending someone to a training. This is for the patrol officers. The reason this is a lot lower is because the training for our patrol officers is generally very close. The vast majority of it's done in right over in West Hampton. Police Department patrol training. Again, we see a big number there that wasn't there the last 2 years. That is not an increase. That was broken down from the staff services training line item from before, so there is no actual requested increase in that training amount. And again, this is tuition for various types of trainings, examples: firearms instructor, rifle instructor, taser instructor, handgun and rifle armorers. An armorer is someone that can maintain these firearms, make sure that they're operating appropriately, and do repairs as needed. Crisis intervention training, etc. Patrol clothing and equipment. That is uniforms for police officers. We are required to provide the uniforms per the collective bargaining agreements. We are asking for a $15,000 increase. The reason for that being in 2023, we are currently, or we will soon be at the end of this month, down 10 police officers. We are hoping to replenish our staff. Every time we hire a new officer, it costs about $2,500 to outfit them. So having new officers coming in next year would be an increase in that cost. In addition to uniform costs overall have increased a bit this year. Where are we at? Next slide, please. Prisoner meals. This is in rare situations. We actually haven't used this line item in a while, but we do need it available to us. In rare situations, if we're going to hold a prisoner here in our building for over the amount of time that it would take for somebody to be expected to get a meal, usually it's 4, 5, 6 hours, or depending on the time of day, we are required to give them a meal. So most of the time, though, we do not hold anyone here that long. Police patrol, bike repair and maintenance. Again, no change here. This is how we maintain and repair our police bicycles. We have 5 bicycles now, and we have 13 certified bike officers. You will see them deployed constantly throughout the warmer months. Patrol psychological exams. This is psychological exams for fitness for duty. It may become necessary as part of the early warning system. We have not needed to use that this year, but we do need that available in the event that the early warning system or internal affairs finds a reason in accordance with the Attorney General's guideline to call for a psychological fitness for duty. Next slide, please. Patrol other supplies. We have, again, expendable supplies such as notepads, paper clips, DVDs, thumb drives, to again supply our patrol officers throughout the day-to-day. These are, again, your typical expendable office supplies throughout the year. Patrol EMT expenses. So we have several officers that are cross-trained as emergency medical technicians. So we need to supply them with first aid supplies and PPE. The reason we have this is because a lot of times we beat the ambulance to the call, and then there's also times where we can't let the ambulance in because the scene isn't safe yet. So we don't want to delay giving anybody treatment if we can't bring in EMTs at that time. So again, these are supplies to keep that unit stocked up on what they need to be able to perform that function. Patrol SWAT expenses. Again, no change here. These are for, various expenses needed for executing search warrants, hostage rescue situations, barricaded subjects. This is things like breaching tools, bags, and cases. Next, we have canine training. Pretty self-explanatory. We currently have 2 active patrol canines. We are required by the Attorney General to give them regular training. We do send them to monthly training to ensure that they are conducting their activities in accordance with all Attorney General guidelines. Next slide, please. Canine expenses, we are looking to reduce our request this year by $1,000. This is for to feed the dogs and give them equipment as needed. We have to have certain harnesses to put on them, certain leads. These things do wear down throughout the patrol job, so they do need to get replaced on a regular basis. Canine vet services, we are requesting an increase, $3,700 increase to this. This is to provide veterinary service for police canines. We ran into an issue this year where one of the canines became very sick, so we had to spend beyond what we had in that line item for this year. And with our canines getting a little bit older, we want to be prepared for next year if we have any further issues. Special officer clothing, again, this is required through the Special Officer Collective Bargaining Agreement. That is clothing and uniform and cleaning allowance. Next slide, please. Oh, and you'll see that's increased by $500. We've spent that $500 for the last 2 years. We've gone over that line item, so we're this year budgeting for that $500 that we know we'll need for our special officer next year. Next slide, please. All right, now we're into the detective division. So again, we're going to see some repeats of these descriptions. And again, it's just for a different unit. You know, the last we were just talking about patrol unit. Before that, administration. Now we're working on detectives. So detective clothing allowance. Again, it's no change this year. We are required to give them a clothing allowance per the collective bargaining agreements. And we are required to supply them with certain uniforms, as detectives also have to work uniform patrol for a variety of reasons, including they are on our mandatory overtime list. Detectives awards and dues, and again, we do a Detective of the Year award. Every year a detective is selected that has gone above and beyond, and we recognize them in our annual ceremony. Detective travel expenses. Again, these are travel expenses, hotel room, not so much plane flights or anything, but these are basically hotel rooms to lodge detectives when they are getting additional training. We are requesting an increase in that. I'm sorry, correction. That was actually under a different line item before. It was under staff services, and we've moved it over to detectives because that's what it was there for. So again, that has not changed. It hasn't increased. It hasn't gone down. It's just been moved to make it more clear as to what the intent of that funding was for. Next slide, please. Training for our detectives. Again, not an increase. This was reallocated from the staff services line item. The training tuition cost for various training we send detectives to, they are required to go to a crime scene photography training. We send them to a basic criminal investigation class, crime scene processing, search and seizure classes, training of that nature. Photo IDs. This is actually not just for detectives, but this process is run out of the detective division. We don't just let anybody run the or make police IDs. That's only done by the Captain Perez, who's in charge of the detective division. We're going to need, or we're requesting an extra $200 here. We're looking at the potential to need more police IDs next year. Again, hoping to hire to replenish our staffing. Detectives equipment, no change here. This is, purchasing binoculars, recording devices, various equipment that comes up throughout the year that either needs to be replaced or enhanced as needed for, activity of the Detective Bureau. Next slide, please. Detectives contractual, that's a specific service called the TLO service. It allows us to do a very broad public record search. It has, we can look up phone records, we can look up vehicle records, a large variety of information, generate a lot of investigative leads to that service. All based on a public record search. Detective informant fees. These are fees necessary to collect intelligence and evidence utilizing confidential sources. Again, no change there. Crime prevention, neighborhood watch, supplies and equipment for our neighborhood watch program. Next slide, please. So community engagement, crime prevention, community engagement. So this is a new line item we made to, again, increase clarity here. What we did was we previously asked for $1,000 in the crime prevention DARE. DARE is now essentially an obsolete program line item, and the crime prevention youth academy line item. But these line items, as they were described, had various community engagement events that were assigned to these, but the titles weren't necessarily explaining what these funds were being allocated for, or requested for, I should say. So we took the $1,000 from the DARE line item, the $5,500 from the Youth Academy line item, and then we asked for a $3,000 increase to make it a total of $9,500. This goes to all of our community events, National Night Out, our participation recently in Trunk or Treat. We have the bike rodeo. We have community engagement events throughout the year, and this is how we fund that. The Youth Police Academy as well. So the reason we're asking for an increase this year, we actually came up short on some of these programs, and they ended up being funded through donations from the officers. The officers got together and came out of pocket and put together donations between the officers and the unions because we believed in these programs. So, that's why we're asking for this to be increased. Hoping next year it won't be necessary to do that, and hopefully if it is necessary, we can still do it. But we are asking for this increase so that we're not hoping. We're confident we'll be able to continue these programs. Staff services training. So you're going to see a huge drop here, 21,000 down to 500. And as described before, that line item was reallocated to other line items. So the $500 remaining, that's going to be for our civilian employees. If we get a new chaplain next year, our crime analyst, we generally send our crime analyst to at least 1 or 2 trainings per year to make sure that he's on top of the latest technology and changes in that industry. Staff services, uniform and equipment, same thing, was $60,000 we had requested last year. We're only asking for $3,000 because we're asking for that money in different places, like I said earlier. What's remaining here, that $3,000, we'd be looking for civilian clothing. We have a civilian employee that's part of the community engagement unit. We have our chaplains. We're looking to purchase clothing items, uniform items for our chaplains as well. Next slide, or next slide, please. Staff services, drug screening. Random drug screenings are required by the Attorney General. We have to do them multiple times per year, and they do have a cost associated with that. Staff services equipment. This is, again, miscellaneous equipment, notepads, batteries, things like that. This is for units that don't have their own budget line items. So it would not be for example, the EMT unit. They have their own line item. But our crisis negotiation unit, they don't have a line item. The accident unit, they don't have a line item. Field training unit programs or field training unit. So this is, again, miscellaneous equipment used to stock expendable items for those units. And again, no change there. Staff services ammunition. We are required, again, by the Attorney General to do biannual training, firearms training, and we are asking for no change in that funding amount. Next slide, please. Staff services contractual. This is various contractual services that we have for efficient deployment of our officers. For example, body-worn cameras and storage, which is a significant cost to especially for the storage with the body cameras. Records management system, our accreditation fees, TASER maintenance and replacement. We are on a regular replacement program with the tasers. The PackyTalk surveillance camera system, our internal affairs software, evidence management software, etc. And again, not requesting any change to that amount. Staff services vehicle leasing. Every year we lease 3 to 4 vehicles to replace other vehicles that are in our currently in our fleet. We run our patrol vehicles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are not, most vehicles are not intended to be utilized that way. So that and the rigors of the patrol, we need to constantly maintain these vehicles. And of course, when an officer goes to get into a car to go to an emergency, it's got to start and it's got to make it there. So again, requesting no change to that line item. Staff services equipment repair and maintenance. Maintenance and repair of various equipment. Our in-car camera microphones would be a great example. Firearms parts, that's another one. Frequently needed small parts throughout to maintain the firearms, make sure they're working properly. Staff services radio maintenance. Again, as we see failures in our radios, it's just the cost of replacing things like our antennas on the radios, or repairing the wiring, things like that inside the vehicle mounted radios. Next slide, please. Staff services internet line. We have to have a separate internet line to do all of our police business on. Otherwise, we can't communicate with County Central. They require us to be on a secured line for that. We also need an additional internet line for just because of the overwhelming bandwidth for maintaining or managing our body camera data. Those are very large uploads. We have our interview room recordings and our PackyTalk surveillance cameras as well, trying to be able to view those in real time. That is data intensive. Again, not asking for any change in that line item. Staff services car conversion. So we will take our fleet, and as certain vehicles get higher mileage and aren't necessarily good for one type of service, we will convert it to do something else. So an admin vehicle might go to a detective vehicle might get rotated to a patrol unit, or vice versa. So we're always trying to find ways to get the longest life we can out of each vehicle that we have. So this is service or fees associated with converting a vehicle from one use to another. An example of that might be adding a computer mount or removing a prisoner barrier or something to that effect. Staff services, other equipment maintenance. again, small expendable items, batteries for weapon-mounted lights, firearms cleaning supplies, things like that. Next slide, please. All right, so the public safety security miscellaneous, this is going to be the municipal security unit. So we need to buy them uniforms. We pay for the lobby guard system out of this line item, their radios, various equipment they need, throughout the year to conduct the business of the security unit. I would say probably the biggest ticket item out of there is going to be the uniforms out of there. Traffic guards clothing, again, this is uniforms and clothing allowance that we are required to provide per their collective bargaining agreement. And again, no changes to either of those line items. Training for traffic guards, again, we do most of our training in-house with the traffic guards, but I believe we only currently have one trained trainer, if that makes sense. So we are looking to send another person to a train-to-trainer training. I said train a lot, I apologize, but hopefully that made sense. So only having one person is not great succession planning. If that one person decides they get one another job, we're not able to hire any or put any more new traffic guards out until we get somebody trained up. So that is what we're looking for next year. Public safety emergency coordinator stipend. Again, this looks like a change, but it's not. We actually moved this line item or this funding request from a previous line item. Before it was just labeled miscellaneous, I believe. That wasn't very clear. This is a stipend paid to the emergency management or Office of Emergency Management Coordinator. And there's actually no change to that dollar amount, or no change requested for that dollar amount. Next slide, please. Again, this is training costs for our Office of Emergency Management. Not requesting any change there. Emergency management signs for when they need to relay various information regarding emergency events. We haven't needed this line item this year. So an example of where we might use this is there was a type of natural disaster and we had emergency supplies at a certain location. They would use that to get signs to say, hey, everybody go to this place for water or whatever is needed. Not requesting any change there. Emergency management office equipment, again, not requesting any change. This is chairs, stationary phones, that type of thing for the Emergency Operations Center. Emergency management equipment. This is for, again, stocking the Emergency Operations Center. I know we utilized a lot of PPE from them over the last 2 years. PPE is personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, things like that. They were able to supply police, fire, and EMS with a lot by having these supplies on hand because when COVID first hit, we couldn't buy it. I know we put in an order for gloves and it took, I want to say 9 to 10 months before we got that order in. If it wasn't for that stock that they have of PPE, and again, they have other supplies such as blankets and cots and things like that for preparing for various types of emergencies. Next slide, please. Emergency management radio maintenance, self-explanatory, batteries, chargers, antennas, that type of thing to make sure the radios are working. And again, not requesting a change there. Looking next at animal control vet services. So when an animal a stray animal needs to be admitted to the shelter, we have to make sure they're healthy. So that's a cost that we bear. Again, not looking for any change in that line item. Following that, the shelter costs $1,000. Again, no change there. That's for actually lodging them in the shelter. Animal control miscellaneous. Obviously, there's a very large change there. So that is the price for the contracted animal control service for next year. That is offset And I would defer to Director Diggs, but I believe it is more than offset by the savings in salary for that position, for the animal control officer position. And that is everything I have. That is all my line items. So available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Captain Donofrio.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I do appreciate the explanations under each line item. That is very helpful as we go through this. So that is really appreciated. Any council members have any questions or comments for public safety?
Just want to say thank you for the detailed report, the explanation. It was very easy to understand. Much appreciated.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I just want to make a note about the animal control miscellaneous service at 54,000. We are actually having a discussion or initiated discussions with our animal control service provider that initially our anticipated use for 2022 has not materialized. So we are actually discussing a decreased monthly expense or fee with them based on our current usage in 2022. So we are having those discussions, and hopefully that will be formalized and reflecting a decrease in that line item by the time we're actually prepared to move forward with the finalized budget presentations.
Okay. Thank you. And so I do have a question about the animal control. As you just said, we're using it less, but is it adequate? I just want to make sure that our animal control services are adequate for our township. I think that is key. I've gotten both, good feedback and some complaints about the availability of the animal control.
Yes, ma'am. So the animal control is always available 24/7. The difference now why it's a lower number is that we bring them out for different things that our previous animal control officer would go to. So when we brought in this new contracted service, we said, okay, what calls is the animal control officer going to? He's going to X number per month. So let's, set up a contract for them to go to X number of calls per month. Well, the difference now is we'd get a barking dog complaint. And that was probably the most common thing, a barking dog complaint. Well, instead of bringing in an outside service, especially on the nights and weekends where it would cost us additional money, a police officer goes out there now and knocks on the door and says, hey, can you bring your dog in? It's barking. So that's probably the biggest change. But when it comes to an actual stray dog, that's when we bring them out, especially again on those different times of day where it's going to cost additional money.
Okay. And I guess some of the complaints I'm getting that it's hard to get through a system. I guess the new system we have to call, do we call the police or the state? Just so, and I know this is a budget conversation, but I just want to make sure we have adequate animal control for our town.
Absolutely, ma'am. Always call the police. We'll take care of everything. So we're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as I've said multiple times. So there should never be a question if there's a dog, if there's an animal, a stray, any kind of issue, call the police department. We are more than happy to, again, if we'll go out there and see if we can address the situation. And if not, we'll call the animal control service. So we always have someone at our desk, and our dispatch, they can bring us from anytime, any call.
Okay. And so as the captain, you think our animal control is sufficient for what we need?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I think between, again, the service that they're doing and the work now that the patrol officers are picking up with, again, for a barking dog complaint, especially on a night and weekend, why are we bringing in that service when we can just go and knock on the door and say, sir, ma'am, could you do me a favor and bring your dog inside? It's keeping people awake. So I think between those two things, and if anybody's having any issues, I would ask them to please contact me. My number here is 609-877-2200, extension 1066. And that's if you're seeing any problems. But if you call our main police desk, 609-877-3001, anytime, we will get a hold of animal control and we will address the problem. We will not let that problem just sit.
Okay, I appreciate that. And also with the investment that we do for the training of our force, how are we maintaining our staff for that? I mean, are we doing the investment in the training and maintaining our police force, or are we training and people are leaving?
So a lot of our training is prescribed by the Attorney General. And then as we put people into specialized units, they are required to get certain training as well. Generally, adding people to specialized units is not, when you first get assigned to a specialized unit, it's usually not for the more senior officers getting closer to retirement. These are our younger officers. So Captain Perez, for example, he was assigned to the SWAT team probably 18 years ago, 17, 18 years ago. And that's how long he's been on the team. So we wouldn't necessarily put someone that is within a few years of retirement into a new specialized unit. Really just rarely makes sense to do that. So no, the only person, we've only had one person leave in the last several years, I believe, that wasn't a retirement. We had one officer left for a different position. So all of our other staffing has, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain Perez, all been for retirements, planned retirements.
Retirements, correct. And that's, we're down now, what, with you, and you have your upcoming retirement December 1st, so we're going to be down 10 officers.
Yes, sir.
But we haven't been losing them through a lack of, poor culture in the police department. No, it's been through retirements, through attrition.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other council member? No?
No,
All
thank
right,
you for your presentation.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Peru.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
I did have a couple questions, May. Sorry. A couple quick questions. Hopefully they're quick. One question was in the police department crime prevention line item. I know in previous years, we've done the Citizens Police Academy, but you didn't mention that was one of the programs that was included in that line item. Is that in that line item or is that recorded somewhere else?
No, ma'am. And I was kind of generalizing a little bit for brevity, but that would include every single one of our community engagement programs would be all included in that one line item. Again, we had kind of broken it up over two different ones, and neither of those labels, the legacy labels or line item titles, I should say, really reflected what the purpose of that funding was. So all of our community engagement, including, yes, Citizens Police Academy, would fall under the community engagement line item.
Okay, great. And then this is just, I guess, a technical question. Under the public safety line item, public safety miscellaneous, I think you had it as other line items or units do have a line item for clothing. Is there a reason why public safety doesn't have a line item for clothing so that we can understand?
Oh, so the security unit line item, why is that one line item? That's I hate to give is that's the way it was when we got it. I thought because it was a smaller unit, it really didn't, in my mind, seem necessary to break that down because it's only 18 people. But I'm happy to go back at that and rework that if that would add to clarity. Absolutely.
It may add a bit of clarity for me. And then just one last question. Overall, are we seeing an increase or a flat rate in the budget request for public safety?
So we would be asking net for an increase of $25,650 out of 738,000, I think, was the total amount we were looking at. Now, that would be the increased spending we would be asking for, like I said, net with the reductions and the increases. It should also be noted that we would be having I think it was $40,300 removed from public safety for A lot of the HR costs, we had our own line item for fleet maintenance and vehicle repair, things like that. We had our own line items for. Those are getting assigned to other functions. So the fleet management is going to have those line items. So while it's not actually a decrease, that would be coming out of we would no longer be keeping that as part of our budget. So if you're looking at our budget, it would look like a $14,650 decrease in the total public safety budget.
All right. No, I appreciate you having those numbers on hand. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
And then I just have a couple more questions. In terms of the vehicle leasing, how long, what are the typical years we trade the vehicles in to get new vehicles?
So I'm going to do the best I can with this. Captain Bucks is really the expert in the vehicle leasing. So I think it is 3 years that we lease them for, and at the end of that 3 years, we purchase the vehicle for $1. That's the way that they're structured.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's a 3-year with a purchase for $1 at the end.
Okay. And then what's the approximate revenue that public safety brings in?
We don't.
Not a revenue base.
Yeah, we don't have a revenue
not-
except for firearms applications, but that doesn't come.
Right.
The money doesn't actually come through us. That would go through.
Okay.
They go right to
State.
finance. I'm sorry.
Mr. Harris, you said something?
No, the public safety isn't really a revenue source. They do take, like Captain Donofrio was saying, some fees to cover, applications and things, some of which get filed off to the state.
Okay.
But they're not really a revenue generating department.
So we don't collect anything from tickets that are written or
That's the
anything?
court. That would
The
be
court.
court.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Captain
ma'am.
Perez, and thank you, Captain Donofrio.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
ma'am.
So last but not least, absolutely, is our fire and EMS department with Chief Burnett. And I will encourage Chief Burnett to be very thorough, but mindful of the time.
Okay, definitely. I'm trying to turn. I don't know why my camera's not on.
It's okay. We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, because my video button has an X on it. I'm hitting it to show it. I don't know why it's not showing. Oh, here we go. Start video. Let me see here. Start video. No, it still didn't come on. I'm not sure what happened to the camera.
That's okay, because
Probably a
Sean is
picture
going to
on
put
the
up the
monitor.
presentation, and that's what we're going to see.
Okay.
You just check to
I-
make sure you don't have the little slide over your
The
camera.
monitor, yeah. your
No, that's
monitor's
all.
Probably switched off. Mhm.
Okay.
It's usually on the top,
Screen.
like a switch. But we can hear you.
I'm trying to share my screen. Sean told me how to do it earlier, and it's not doing that now. Can you see my screen?
We are seeing your screen.
Wait, one
Oh, okay. Okay.
second now.
All right. So our presentation. There we go. Can you see that presentation right now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And we hit switch. Oh, do it one more time. Swap screens. There we go. Now, can you see that right there?
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, good evening, council and township manager and public. I'm here to present the fire and EMS presentation. So the fire department is a 24-hour, 7 days a week combination department consisting of full-time and volunteer personnel. the fire department currently consists of 22 full-time staff, approximately 10 active volunteer firefighters, and approximately 10 active fire police members to handle all types of 911 emergencies. The fire department, on average, handles approximately 1,400 calls for service per year and is on pace to increase that number in 2022. These types of calls include vehicle accident, water rescues, power line downs, structure fires, vehicle fires, carbon monoxide alarms, fire alarms, activations, and assisting EMS on various calls that we requested to go to. The EMS department is a combination department consisting of full-time per diem and volunteer personnel. The EMS department currently consists of 5 full-time EMT staff and approximately 11 per diem EMTs and approximately 3 volunteer EMTs to handle all types of 911 emergency medical calls. The current full-time EMT staff they're assigned to EMS incidents during the daytime hours, 7 days a week. Per diem EMT staff are assigned to handle power shift during the daytime secondary calls and evening shifts when they are available. The EMS department is dispatched to approximately 4,700 calls for service per year and is on pace to be dispatched to more than that in 2022. This includes cardiac emergencies, respiratory emergencies, diabetic emergencies, fall victims, and other various EMS medical emergencies. All right, so I'm gonna go over the fire department budget lines items first, and then I'll go over the EMS separately. So under fire department training, we requested no increase, but keeping it at $10,000. And this is for required certifications, recertifications. We also use it for going to different schools and various academies. We also use it for CPR, AED training, online web-based training, and any kind of training for a rescue task force that we go on to assist the police department on active shooter calls. Under fire department clothes and PPE equipment, there's no increase on that. We're still asking for $20,000. That's for the required station uniforms and associated accessories for firefighters and fire police personnel, which includes like their personal protective equipment, firefighting gear. Fire department fireman service, that is money's allocated to the volunteer fire company allowed through the New Jersey Legislative Act 40:A 14-33 and 40A 14-34. Where volunteer fire companies can receive monies from the township, and the volunteer fire company is established through the township ordinance. Fire prevention and community relations, still asking for the $6,000 budget, which is no increase from last year or from this year, which includes fire prevention and community relation materials for events that we tend to in the community and schools. Fire department reimbursement line is there's no increase in that, still the same for the past several years. That's where the duty crew reimbursement program for volunteer firefighters, where we give them a little stipend at the end of the year for their response to incidents throughout the year. Fire department medical exams, that's staying at $1,000. And we do require SCBA fit test medical questionnaire clearance forms, and any kind of employee or any employee who wants to take the Hep B series shots, we have to provide that by law. Fire department equipment, still asking the same as this year, $25,000. That's used for purchasing new replacement fire equipment that's on the fire apparatus. Fire department office equipment, still asking for $1,000, no change in that. That's used for purchasing any kind of office equipment and equipment that we utilize in our training room. The Youth Fire Academy program, that's that 2-week program offered in the summer months where youth cadets between 13 and 17-year-olds are allowed to come in for our program. In 2023, we expect an increase than what we had this year. That's why we asked for that $1,000 increase. Previous years prior to 2021, before COVID, we were at $5,000. Then after COVID, we went down to $4,000, but we think that that's a very good program, great program. And we expect more more students to sign up this year. So that's why we're asking for that $1,000 increase. Fire department software, we're asking for a $2,500 increase, and mainly due to the county. We are currently on a software database right to the county called Firehouse Software. At the end of this year, that software is no longer being supported. So the county through the County Fire Chiefs Association, they did some research on a records management system for the county fire departments to utilize. All 46 fire departments in this county agreed to go with this new software called First New. The county is paying for the first year, which is starting now, so that we can get into it into next year. And then we have an increase in our pricing that went up because that this software system is going to offer not only records management, but also for us going to calls, giving us mapping programs that's going to make it better for us for response. Fire department radio maintenance, that is asking for the same, that's been for the same for the past years. That's to repair portable radios, mobile communication devices, replacement of equipment, radios, headsets that we have that go out for repair that are on the apparatus. Fire department vehicle repair, still keeping that the same at $10,000. These are for items on vehicles and apparatus that need repairs, i.e. wiring, bulbs, emergency lighting, repairs to any kind of onboard equipment found on apparatus, repairs to or replacement parts for vehicles and apparatus. Building maintenance, I know that Mr. Harris' goal is to move all building maintenance under buildings. I did tell him, request that for this year coming up, we keep it under our department and we transition into it getting moved over. We utilize this building maintenance for building for entire building, for our annual air compressor certifications, building supplies, cleaning supplies. We do our own cleaning throughout the entire building. We have no cleaning service, but we do our own cleaning at the building. Also, it does, this money is utilized for our annual permits for a commercial cooking unit in the kitchen. Our fire alarm testing and inspections that are required, require sprinklers testing and inspections, and require extinguisher inspections, and doing our HVAC system and mechanical room maintenance. The actually rest for that $4,000 increase because when we first moved into the building 2 years ago, some of that stuff was covered under warranties for the first couple of years. So now that we have been in the department or in the station for 2 years, some of it's coming out of the prepaid items. So that's why we need that increase. Vehicle scheduled maintenance, still keeping that the same, no increase. It's for regular preventive maintenance on vehicles and apparatus. Annual chassis and transmission maintenance on fire apparatus, annual pump maintenance, pump testing and maintenance, and annual aerial maintenance on our ladder truck. Vehicle major repairs is utilized for any major repairs to the vehicles and fire apparatus, and also any kind of unpredictable repairs. I am showing that we're requesting, I said that a $5,000 decrease. We did good this year with our repairs, but there's a lot of equipment that's getting older, and sometimes we may have an unpredictable repair. We did have a small fire on a fire truck a couple months ago. That didn't cost so much to repair, thank God. And but that line item is utilized for any kind of major repairs and those unpredictable repairs that go to apparatus, to the large apparatus. Vehicle other equipment maintenance is keeping that the same as this year's request, $22,000. That's used for our annual required fire hose testing, inspection, and required ground ladder testing, aerial ladder testing, inspection, annual required tool maintenance and servicing on a rescue truck, required flow testing on our SCBAs that we utilize while fighting fires, high strike testing of the SCBA cylinders. And then we have a miscellaneous item for $1,000 that we keep that the same as last year's, and that's always been the same for the last several years. For items that not associated with a specific line item, example, our Easy Pass fees, motor vehicle fees that when we had to get things done at motor vehicles. So the fire department operating request is $211,000. It is a overall increase from last year. We did a decrease of $5,000 in major repairs. We asked for an increase of $1,000 in youth program, $2,500 in software and building maintenance, $4,000. So that $5,000 offsets that. So really, we're only requesting $2,500 increase in our operating budget for fire. Now I'm going to go over the EMS department. EMS department training. We saw that we didn't spend as much money as we needed. A lot of our training is through our web-based program through Virtua. So we asked for a $1,000 decrease there, but that line item is used for training for EMTs and certifications, state certifications. We're also going to use it for our community and employees Stop the Bleed program. And then we also use it for our online web-based training and any kind of in-person training at the emergency training facilities. EMS department equipment and supplies, that is supplies that goes on that to restock the ambulances, emergency vehicles, i.e. bandages, O2 collars or collars, AED pads, and other medical equipment. We also change out the township's AED pads that are located in the building. So we utilize that for batteries replacements and also handling the township buildings equipment. EMS department clothing and PPE equipment, that's for uniforms and associated items to outfit the EMTs, pants, shirts, boots, job shirts, etc. Any kind of protective equipment that we utilize for that. And we asking for the same amount that we asked for last year, which is $7,000. Radio maintenance, asking for the same for that. Again, that's to repair portables, mobile equipment devices within the ambulances. Medical exams, we're asking that to be $1,000. There is a decrease from last year, or actually, yeah, I thought that there was a decrease of $4,000 that got moved. Actually, I asked for it to be in the 2023 budget, but it got moved over to HR department for any kind of medical exams for pre-employment purposes. But the $1,000 currently is used for medical questionnaires, clearances for that are required for the testing of the PM100 mask that the EMTs should wear on certain calls. Vehicle repair, Public Works handles a lot of our vehicle repairs and maintenance. So we show that we could do a $2,000 decrease, but items on the ambulances that need repairs, i.e. wiring, bulbs, emergency lighting, those items are handled under that line item. Software, we utilize that for Active 911 EMS dispatching software, personnel scheduling software. That request is to remain at $4,000 as we did this year. Scheduled maintenance, preventive maintenance that we utilize on the ambulances and EMS command vehicles. We're showing that we were saying that we can do a $1,000 decrease in that line item also. For vehicle major repairs, the next line item, we're showing a $2,000 decrease for requests for this year, but we utilize that for any major repairs to ambulances, anything that's unpredictable, that those repairs get made under that line, repairs that may have to be sent out to outside vendors that DPW cannot handle. EMS office equipment maintenance, or other equipment maintenance, other equipment maintenance. That's for maintaining our equipment that's found on the ambulance. We're asking for that $1,000 increase there. That's due to the ambulance stretchers and stretchers have to be maintained. And I actually said this in the wrong section, but the replacement equipment for the township's AED pad batteries that are on the walls at the each township building, at the library, Public Works Township building. We do have AED systems up there that need to be maintained. And under the miscellaneous line, the next line item, we're keeping the request at $500 for Easy Pass fees for that side of the EMS side and the DMV fees too. EMS operating budget is only requesting overall $72,500, and we did show a decrease of $10,000 in their operating budget, when only asking for a $1,000 increase overall under the equipment maintenance. So that is the fire and EMS lines. And
Thank you, Chief Burnett.
All right, Mr. Harris. No, I'm sorry. Any questions or concerns or comments for fire EMS? No, that was
No,
good.
just want to say thank you for the presentation, Chief.
thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I echo that. Thank you for the presentation. And Mr. Harris, upon the, I guess, preparation of our budget workbooks, it would be helpful just to see what the actual spend was for the 2022 year, and even sometimes if you can, in the 2021 year would be helpful as well.
You will, Deputy Mayor, because, we're really just beginning this fourth quarter. We really don't have the final numbers of the actual spend, but when you get your budget books, you will have that information, and you will also have a summary of each line item increase and decrease, and why they went up or down the way that they did.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to make one quick note regarding the EMS, is that we have just begun to see the billing statements from our full-time EMS department. And we are showing a market increase, uptick in revenue from insurance billing, from EMS services. And we do really anticipate that the EMS division will kind of be self-funding. So we're just going to look for the continued increases in revenues there.
Very good. All right, Mr. Harris, did you have any closing statements? We're going to go to public comment after this. I don't think we have any public, but we'll go to public comment. But I do appreciate, I didn't know if you had anything to sum up these presentations.
No,
okay.
no, I didn't. No further comments. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll move to public comment. If we have any public on the line, you have 4 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone on the line?
Not at this moment.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, it's 8:02. Public comment is now closed. Any council have any closing comments?
I just want to thank all the directors that presented. Thank you for the thorough presentations. And as I indicated earlier, if anything changes from these reports, it's important, to let the manager know so that, we can know instead of having to, wait until we're into the budget. If there's anything that changes, just let us know as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good point. Dr. Worthy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you to everyone who was part of the presentation. I do appreciate the deep level of detail and the level of consistency from each department. So I do appreciate that, and the growth as a township as we continue to mature our budget process. So thank you, everyone. And I appreciate my council colleagues and the discussion and the questions to help us make sure that we're getting our questions answered early on and to provide the administration an opportunity to share insights as we get ready for, during the budget process. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else?
No, just again, thank you for the presentations. They were helpful for consideration.
And also, I'd just like to thank Mr. Harris for continuing this participatory budgeting process as we bring our residents along on the budgeting journey with us. I'm sure that it is helpful for them to understand where their tax dollars are going as we go department by department. So thank you to you and your staff for preparing the presentations and helping our residents understand our budget.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Harris. I just want to make a point that thank you for keeping us in compliance with the state and making sure, these are executed this month. And I do think that our directors did a great job today. We probably will have further conversations as more questions may come up over the next couple of weeks or next month. But I do appreciate you opening up the conversation. And I think this gives a nice preview or insight, I should say, to the residents as they watch this later. As to the many functions that our township has to handle to make the Willingboro operable. So I do thank everyone, and I look forward to the next set of conversation. And who's next, Mr. Harris?
Let me just go into my calendar really quick. The next sessions will be held on the 22nd. And that will be Public Works, Facilities and Recreation.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. And this is on YouTube, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I see it on YouTube. Okay, Councilwoman Perrone.
Yes, I just want to see, when are we going to have a meeting with Mr. Harris so we can present our presentation as far as the council as a whole, as far as goals that we're looking for that are financial expenses towards 2023. Because last year it seemed that the council had concerns or ideas, and it was all at the end after all the presentations were executed, and then there was no time to incorporate a thorough financial analysis as far as what 2023 looks like. So is that something we can put on the calendar as far as all of council getting together to discuss what we'd like to see in the budget as far as our goals and projects for this year?
I think you can do that. We can do that at any time. I think we did do that last year when we went through the budget. We did. But however, we can add that to the end.
See, that was a thing, because we did add it, but it was at the end. And then when we had a discussion, it was like, well, we have to vote now because the timeline, because of the calendar.
We had plenty of weeks in between. We were in the beginning, we had plenty of weeks in between to add and discuss, but we can definitely put a council, to your point, a council portion.
And I would like for us to not only put that in soon, but also to have a collaborative working session where council, perhaps we can have something written prior to that meeting where we can share it with each other when we come to the meeting. Because I know it's a little bit different, whereas opposed to the different departments that we've heard today, they're able to meet throughout the business day and discuss and then create a presentation. However, I'd like to have a working meeting with the council and then for us to collaborate one presentation as far as what council's vision is for 2023. So perhaps it could be a two type of special meeting type of a thing, one of a working session, and then the takeaway is collaborating it similar to what we do for performance reviews, collaborating it to one goal for 2023 as it pertains to our financial expenses and our our visions for 2023.
Okay, I have to look at the calendar, see where it fits.
Okay.
All right, but point taken. All right. Madam Clerk,
I need a motion to adjourn, please.
so moved.
Second.
Moved by Mayor McIntosh, second by Deputy Mayor Whitfield. We need a roll call.
All in favor? You can-
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a great
Aye,
night.
aye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
8:02.
Thank you.